And we're here. Hello. Okay, so welcome back to Action Jack-Offs, the show where we talk about the very best and our favorite action movies of all time. This week, the end of the week here, we are getting into quite arguably the best action movie of the 1980s, Die Hard. Possibly the best action Christmas movie that has almost nothing to do with Christmas. Die Hard.
It's the best Christmas movie. Shut your mouth.
Do
I
you
watch it every year.
so you would consider Die Hard a Christmas movie?
They say Merry Christmas when they open the safe.
Yeah, that's true.
They say ho I have a machine gun, ho ho ho.
Classic.
The whole point that John McClane is there is that he wants to see his family on Christmas,
Yep.
even though they're semi-divorced.
Separated,
Uh
kind of.
Miss Gennaro.
Yes, yes. Very unfortunate. Um, yeah, I would say that this is like one of those movies that really skirts the line between whether or not it can be considered a holiday movie, but I think that's what makes it
It is.
fun. I think that's what makes it fun. You know?
I
I think it's fun to talk
do
about.
watch it every Christmas.
See, I don't watch it every Christmas.
It's
Uh,
not on Christmas, but it's during the season.
it's during the season. I watch it whenever I get the notion to watch it because I think it's just a timeless movie to a degree.
Oh, for sure is.
I
I
think
mean, we watched it in June this year.
we watched it this year. We watched it together. Actually, this is one of the first few films we got a chance to actually watch together.
I was so happy.
Yeah, it was great. Played mini golf, drank some beer. It was great. Um,
It was a great day.
and we were watching Die Hard, and it was funny because one of the first things that I said was, "Wow, isn't this amazing how this movie is just so timeless?" And you looked at me, and you said, "Yeah, but there's no smoking allowed in airports these days." It was like,
It
"Oh
was
yeah,
right as you said it, he lit the cigarette, and I
yeah."
went,
Right
"Is it
as
though?"
and of course you've got like all these other like little callbacks and stuff to like the time period of when it's
The
at
car phone,
yeah, car phones.
them being like him being impressed kinda about the cute toy of
Yeah,
touchscreen
the touch
technology.
screen technology that was like very very limited back in the day. Um, yeah, I mean all that stuff, and obviously Bruce Willis having hair, not something that lasted very long.
That's
Not something that
You
that
had to go
lasted.
for
I
it.
had to go
You
for
had
it.
to go for
The
it.
hairline in Die Hard is just as iconic as any of the lines in the movie. Um,
It was just the style.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
It's
Um,
good. It's good. Looks good.
if we're talking about just like what a great movie this is, I think this is a great movie. I think this is genuinely
Like,
one of
this is
those.
up there.
This is up there as like just a great movie, not even like a great action movie. I think it's a great movie in terms of just this guy that is trying to save his wife and save his family. He
Hmm.
wants to be a part of his family, and he realizes that he's messing up. He's letting all the good things get away from him, and he's got to get it back. Because you never know when it's too late. I really like the story that the writer behind this movie gives about how he was having a hard time getting this movie off the ground. And the thing that inspired him to write this movie is that he got into a really bad argument with his wife right beforehand. And then he went out driving and he almost crashed his car and he almost died. And then he went home, he apologized to his wife, and he immediately started writing like the first 15 pages to Die Hard. Because that's the central focus here, you know? Jeb Stewart was his name, the writer.
Jib.
Of course, the movie would later be revised by Stuart E. DeSouza, and it's obviously based on a book by Roderick Thorpe, who also wrote a book called The Detective, which was adapted into a movie in the 70s, starring Frank Sinatra. And a funny story about the casting of this movie is that in order to make the movie, they contractually had to offer Frank Sinatra the role to the part. Obviously, Frank Sinatra probably would have been in his 70s at the time of filming. So he, of course, turned it down, sad to say. that we didn't get 70-year-old Frank Sinatra in the role here, but we got Moonlighter Bruce Willis. He came to us in a dream.
They weren't sure if he was going to be able to be a big time action star.
Yeah, wasn't it that he got one of the biggest paychecks out of like any actor at the time?
And they were like, "This is a TV guy. What are we doing?"
Yeah, they really took a chance on him for his potential, they
Then it
say.
was and it was the before that was regular. Like it wasn't all the time that you would see TV and movie stars going back and forth as you do as frequently as you do to see it today.
Yeah, it was very rare, and I think at the time he made like 5 mil. His agent got him 5 mil off the project, which is insane to think about that he was making the same kind of money as established movie actors like Dustin Hoffman.
It's just wild.
Yeah, but I mean, it worked out. I
It was
mean,
worth it.
it worked out. We got Bruce Willis in major movie roles, and I think that kind of worked out for itself. Obviously, I don't think his career has been as stellar as it could have been outside of the Die Hard project, and obviously, years would go by, and then the Die Hard movies would kind of like die off, and
They would die hard. Let
they
me
would
tell
die
you.
hard. I set myself up for that. They definitely die
Yeah, you
hard.
did.
Uh, I think honestly, like I think I like all of them except for the last one, the fifth one.
I
It's
don't think I ever saw the one where him and his son are doing it together.
it's a
I don't
good.
think I ever saw that
Do you
one.
know what it's called?
A Good Day to Die Hard or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, I liked Live Free or Die Hard.
Live Free or Die Hard was good. The one with Justin Long. I like that
I
one.
actually quite enjoy that one.
I would
It's not very
actually.
good,
I
but
wouldn't
I
say it's the
remember. I think that was
best.
the no. I think that was actually the first one that I remember watching because it was brand new, and then they were showing Die Hard on like all of the original trilogy on TV all the time.
That was always my favorite. Whenever they would show those movie marathons and the super like
Mm-hmm.
heavily edited versions of Die Hard.
Yippee ki yay, cowboy!
Yeah, yeah. Or they'd cut out like all the squibs and stuff. Like
Uh,
it would show like the bullets like about to hit them, and then like it cuts away right as it gets to them. Um,
mm-hmm.
Obviously you miss out on a lot of the good stuff there. I think Die Hard. I think this movie has probably some of the best squibs we've seen out of any of the movies we've covered so far. I think
It really looks like they're getting shot.
it really does look really good. I think Predator was probably the closest we've come so far in terms of like great squibs, and then we got to Die Hard, and then it's just amazing. It's just like the perfect squibs you could ever have in a action sequence.
Because other than the helicopters and the explosions and stuff, that's the real special effects. Is just all the squibs of people exploding.
Yeah, yeah, it's kick ass.
Love it.
I love it too, and what makes it even funnier. So, I didn't get a chance to mention this yet, but this is obviously the sequel to what we were talking about earlier. How this is another John McTiernan movie, and I mentioned this at the time when we watched the movie, but I thought this was so cool that the producer Joel Silver, who just seems to be behind so many of these movies, he did Predator, he did Lethal Weapon, and now he's doing this movie, and he pulled John McTiernan from Predator to come do this movie, and it's just feather after feather after feather in this extremely feathered cap that this guy's got. And I thought it'd be fun to try and look at what all else Joel Silver's gotten his hands into. If I could pull him up real quick because I thought that would be funny.
uh, he's
Production.
produced all kinds of stuff. I'm sure his '90s are lit.
Oh, I know. Joel Silver. But yeah, anyway, in case I might not get to him in time. Oh, okay, yep. He's done Roadhouse, Commando, The Last Boy Scout, Romeo Must Die. He's got a lot. Hold on, let me get this guy going here. Let me spice this up.
Get that full Wikipedia or IMDb up.
Predator 2, obviously. House on Haunted Hill.
First stinker.
House on Haunted Hill. You don't like that one? Is that a bad one for you? Let's see here. The nice.
No,
Oh,
Predator 2.
he did The Matrix. He did The Nice Guys. Um, let's see here. Oh, he acted as producer on the most recent Roadhouse, the newest Roadhouse. So he's heavily tied into that movie as well, which we are definitely going
Another
to cover. That's
stinker.
an oh come on, Roadhouse is great. You're talking about the original or the remake?
No, the new one's the stinker. The
I
original's
gotcha, I
good,
gotcha, I
but
gotcha.
the original's good because it's a stinker though.
Oh, he did the
It's
Sherlock
not the
Holmes
same class as
movies.
Die Hard.
He did the Sherlock Holmes movies with RDJ. He's done
Oh, I love
obviously
those.
he's done a few horror movies. He did Speed Racer. Uh,
Ahead of its time,
ooh, he did V for Vendetta.
misguided, misjudged.
V for
Oh, I love
Vendetta.
that one.
That's a good one. He did all three of the Matrix Revolution. He did all three of the Matrix trilogy: Matrix Revolutions, Matrix Reloaded, the Animatrix, and he also did obviously the original Matrix. Let's see here, 13 Ghosts.
Love 13 Ghosts. I used to think that movie was so scary when I was little.
Yeah, of course you did.
When I was little, I thought that was the scariest movie that ever existed. Now it's hilarious.
Of course he's. It seems here he's done all the Lethal Weapons. He. Oh my God, he did Demolition Man.
Oh, what a stinker. What an absolute pile of hobgob.
You mean one of the greatest movies ever made? Are you kidding me?
Oh, dude, like we have to re-listen to our podcast on that one from like 5 years ago.
Yeah, just to get a feel
We
for it.
the re-demolition man.
I need to rewatch it. It's been so long since I've seen it, so I gotta hold off. So he did Die Hard 2.
You wait. Before you go on,
What's that?
you're telling me Joel Silver knows about the clamshells?
Oh, he knows. He knows. He has to know.
Oh, he knows.
He has to
He
know.
has to know.
Of course, he did Action Jackson.
Anytime you could bring up Action Jackson, you're going to.
Of course. Oh, he also did 48 Hours. He did The Warriors
Classic.
as an associate producer, and that's kind of like where he got his start. And then I think the movie he did right before that was Max as like a short. He was a producer on, but The Warriors was probably his real big break, and that's a great movie. And we might actually talk about that on the show one time.
I'm out to play.
But try and reel it back in, get back to Die Hard here.
Back to Die Hard, buddy.
Is
Yippee ki it back into place.
yeah, let me just whoosh, Roy Rogers that shit. Would you say that this is quite possibly, if we're talking about the ending scene in the movie, obviously we'll just get into spoilers because I mean that's what we do, we spoil. Would you say that this is quite possibly the best example of the trope of a person falling out of a building, like where the camera is like hanging over them and then you see them falling? Would you say that this is like the best version of that?
I don't know if it's the best version, but I could definitely say that it's on the Mount Rushmore, or that people have mimicked it so many times that you're thinking of this one, so to speak.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. I will have to say that Mount Rushmore is probably the right way to say it because I also think of that guy at the end of RoboCop who like falls and he's got like the weird like special effects arms that are like hanging out to the side.
Yeah, yeah.
I definitely think that's
There's
in there.
that.
I could,
I'm thinking of one of the Mission Impossible movies where Tom Cruise is doing it, where it looks really, really well done.
yeah.
There's Cliffhanger. Let me tell you,
Oh yeah, Cliffhanger's a good
great.
one.
I love that one.
Well, we'll talk about Cliffhanger here in a second.
We'll
Uh,
talk about Cliffhanger here in a second. Don't you worry, guys. Don't you worry. We're coming back to it.
but yeah, I would definitely have to say it's on the Mount Rushmore of that very very niche specific trope of the bad guy falling
It's in
out.
a lot of action movies.
It is. It's very odd how it's in a lot of action movies. I also remember it being
It's even
strange.
a National Treasure.
It's a national treasure. I also strangely remember it being in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, where like the same thing happens, but there's like this weird cross edit where like it's instead of the guy who's falling in the very traditional trope, like hitting the water that he's falling into, they just like hard cut him out of frame. Very noticeable. Come on, damn it.
Very noticeable.
But
Or in Juice. You ever seen Juice with Tupac Shakur and Omar Epps?
can't say I have. Can't say I have,
Ah,
unfortunately.
that's hey, we're gonna have to pull that one in at some point. I don't know which one, if it's
Somehow.
gonna be in the horror movie podcast. So just let me throw this premise out for you,
Okay,
just
hit
real
me.
quick.
Hit me with it.
Omar Omar Epps' friend, him and his friends, Tupac Shakur, and then two other friends who I names I'm forgetting right now. Like a little group of four, just going around town, making trouble in the neighborhood and whatnot. Omar Epps wants to be in a DJ competition, but Tupac Shakur, he starts to have a little bit too much of the dark side in him.
Uh-oh.
And it ends very similar to how we're talking, where one person is holding the other person, and they might fall to their death or not.
Oh, okay. So it's basically just the setup for that trope.
It's it's a setup for that trip. That's we get to that eventually, but it's a really good movie,
I gotcha.
real low budget.
Let me just write that down. Juice. And hopefully I won't confuse it for
Yeah, just
groceries.
yes. Juice 19. I think it's 1990.
Oh shit,
Could
so
be
it's like
wrong.
early.
Yeah.
Okay. Other thing I was gonna ask is, so one of the big draws for this movie is that John McClane as a character is kind of supposed to be somewhat of the antithesis to what you would traditionally associate an 80s action hero as, where he's not this muscle bound freak, basically. He's not super adept at fighting, he's not super adept at many things, let alone killing an entire, squadron of people just by himself. Would you say that John McClane fits the bill of a regular guy being thrust into this situation?
He's got that normal guy build and look to him. I like that it's that they went like against script, because that's like another part of the reason why they weren't sure if it was gonna work or not. They were like, You got a TV move guy trying to do movies, and he's not built and on steroids, and I'm sorry, naturally built to be
Oh,
a gigantic."
yeah, I know what you mean.
Naturally,
Yeah, he's
like
not,
how all the Marvel guys are these days.
because didn't they offer
But
this
I'm,
role to Schwarzenegger and Stallone, correct?
and they were just like, nah, we got other movies on the boiler.
Yeah.
But I do like, it's the same kind of thing with Jaws, where they're just like, just get a New York guy, and
Yeah,
they'll be rough and tough enough to deal with whatever the environment throws at them.
true. And I will say this, I think that's kind of where, like, initially I see him as like a normal guy, and then as the movie goes on, what I like, I will say this before I get into that thought, before I finish that thought, I will say this. The thing that I really like about John McClane as a character is he goes through hell. And
Hmm.
the movie does a really good job of like visually showing you that, he's bleeding all the time. He's covered in soot and dust and ash.
His clothes are immediately dirty.
His clothes are immediately dirty. He's covered in sweat. He just looks like shit throughout the whole thing. And I think that's what I really like about it is that he's a very vulnerable main character.
Hmm.
As an 80s action hero, being vulnerable is kind of like taboo. So I was really happy to note
It's the
that
opposite.
it's the opposite. And I love that there's also moments in the movie where he like takes time to like reflect to himself, talk about the things he fucks up on, or takes time to talk about his hopes and dreams, like if he never makes it out of this situation alive. Which I think is practical for a character to say to themselves, I'm in a really impossible situation here, and I probably will die. Um, but then on the other hand, you've also got he's got main character syndrome, where like bad things happen to him, but he also gets like really really lucky all the time. Um, but I also feel like on top of that, him being a New York cop is also the thing that kind of like sets him apart and doesn't like necessarily put him at the level of just regular Joe. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And then we've even got I think this is one of the earliest times that I noticed a movie being like really meta and like mentioning other movies
Oh
where
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, you think you're Arnold Schwarzenegger? You've seen too many movies, Mr. Cowboy."
Yeah, and they talk about like John Wayne and Roy Rogers and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Obviously that leads to like the most famous line in the movie. Um but yeah, I think the whole him being a cop and stuff like that is something that really plays into it. Obviously, it plays into it. Um, but I also like how his solutions to problems are very like outside the box. You know, it's not just a simple point and shoot gamer mentality. Um, he really goes into it, and he does that thing that I love when in certain action movies where he uses a lot of subterfuge. Like for instance, when he's fighting off that first guy, Carl's brother in the movie, uh, where he's like turning on different tools and stuff to try and like trick the guy into thinking he's somewhere, he's over here, he's doing this, and then of course he sneak attacks him and starts messing him up. Um, I really like that. I also really one of the other things I really like about the movie is people die hard. Carl's brothers,
Really funny. Or the use of the tape.
the use of the tape, that's a classic example of thinking outside the box. Um, Using the C4 the way he used the C4, where he like tied it to a rolling chair and
Throwing a body.
a computer. Oh yeah, throwing the body to alert the cop. Yeah, that was great. Um, that was just good shit right there. Let's see here. What else did I have? Oh yeah. You want to go ahead and just jump right into the categories?
Oh yeah, for sure. Hit me with it.
Okay, so we've got favorite still frame category where we talk about our favorite still image throughout the entirety of the movie. And mine was the TV dinner 5104.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah, where he's classic shot of him in the air vents, John McClane in the air vents holding his lighter, looking right at the camera. I think it's a classic scene, it's a classic line. What do you got?
Classic lines, a classic scene. I wrote that one down as well, but I had the at 2 hours and 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Whenever he is being first holding his wife, and he's in the fireman's jacket, and it's just a still frame of his face, and he still looks concerned and crazed from the night that he's had, and his
Yeah.
wife is sitting there holding him,
Yep, that's
and
a good
it's
one.
it's just a great shot. It's very similar where it's like real close up on his face, but
He's a
I
great
just I
actor.
think that one's just a tad bit more powerful. And the
Yeah.
first one's more iconic, of course.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I like yours too because it's like his face is just like a mixture of relief and shock. He's got
But he
his
also can't be like he's being comforted, but he can't feel the comfort yet. It's just
yeah,
really good face
yeah, like
acting.
he can't let his guard down just yet. Because of everything he's been through, he feels
Carl's right around the
traumatized.
corner.
Yeah, yeah. And then of course we would find out that there's somebody still alive trying to kill him.
Mhm.
So his distrust in the peace and quiet was not misplaced. Um, but yeah, and then obviously what I like about my favorite still frame is it's a small bit of reprieve from the hectic shit we've been going through, and I just really like how he's talking to himself. I love how John McClane just like talks to himself in the movie. It's almost like he's trying to keep his sanity by constantly reaffirming to himself that he's not crazy. He really is going through some shit.
I was thinking about that when we were watching it the other night. I thought to myself, and I wanted to bring it up now. I think uh, he has more lines of dialogue talking to himself than interacting with any characters.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say
He's
yeah,
like talking to the radio. He's like talking to the radio or talking to himself
yeah.
more than he's actually talking face to face with any of the characters. And then
It
if he is, he's usually killing them.
yeah, yeah, or yeah. I mean, especially early on too,
Yeah,
before he gets his hands on the radio. Yeah, he's got some great conversations with himself. I also just love thinking about that scene because, as I've mentioned, and when we were watching it, it's funny because we know now in any scene where somebody's crawling through an air vent that's like really not like
it's like
accurate.
impossible.
It's like impossible to fit into an air
We've
vent.
seen it in so many movies.
It's one of those like great tropes in movies. Damn flies flying around. It's like one of those great tropes in movies that you always think about whenever you think about somebody trying to be stealthy or hiding or something, and it's just not true. It's just not accurate.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit. But moving on, we've got our next category here, number one liners category, where we talk about our favorite one liners in the movie. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, you got to start by saying "Yippee ki yay, motherfucker!" Like, what are we doing here if we don't at least bring it up?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep. I mean, that's you have to say it pretty much.
Oh,
Um,
and then I love uh I blanked on his name. The guy who's doing cocaine.
oh, Ellis.
Ellis. I wanted to say Elliot, but I knew that wasn't
No, yeah, Ellis played by
right.
Hart
Ghost
Bochner.
and Hans. Bubby.
Bubby.
Yeah.
Hans.
Hans. Bubby.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a
I'm your
funny
white
line.
knight.
That's a funny line from such a funny character in the movie. I love Ellis.
He's
He's such a
crazy.
schmuck. Um, I've got this one we talked about. We mentioned earlier. Now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho.
Really funny because it's written by John McClane, but
Yeah.
it's said by Alan Rickman, so he just goes, "Now
Ho
I have
ho.
a machine gun. Ho ho ho."
Man, shout out to the late great Alan Rickman there
Rest in peace, Severus Snape.
with probably the would you say that Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber is one of the all-time classic movie villains?
I have to say, if we're going by European villains, he's number one for sure.
For sure, but I mean like if we're thinking about like the top 10 greatest
The
movie
top
villains of
10,
all time.
he's definitely on there.
Like yeah, cuz I mean when I think of great movie villains, I'm thinking about like Darth Vader. I'm thinking about um Hans Gruber always comes to mind. The Predator.
Gar,
Thinking about
Bruce.
Bruce, Voldemort.
Sauron.
I'm just thinking about these super iconic villains that you just think of and you're like, that's villainy. Sauron. Um, yeah, just all those guys. I mean,
Anything from H.P. Lovecraft's catalog.
yeah, pretty much.
Cthulhu.
Yeah. If they made a good movie on Cthulhu, that would count.
I
Um,
know.
but
Well,
yeah.
the color out of space is really good.
Up next, I also had this one made us laugh. This one was so funny when he said it. Context is John McClane is talking to a dispatch woman over the radio, and she tells him, "Sir, this is an emergency line. This is for emergencies only." He goes, "No shit, lady. What does it sound like I'm trying to do here? Order a fucking pizza?"
It's so good. I laughed so hard because I forgot that he even called the dispatch line.
Oh man, yeah, that scene is so funny because it's like I love it, he's like going in like this order of operations of like what he can do to like get the police there, and he finally gets a hold of somebody, and she's just not having his shit. She's not
Nah,
into it.
not even a
She
little bit.
she's probably doing I can't tell if she's doing the absolute worst job or the best job a dispatch woman can do.
It's up to
It's
interpretation.
up
I mean,
to,
on Christmas Eve, there's not much you can do.
and somebody had already caught, and the fire alarm had already been pulled, and they had already sent somebody out there, and they called it off. So it's like, is it a crank call? Is it not? I don't know what I would do in that situation. It's a very precarious situation. Um, I also had, obviously, I mentioned this previously in the favorite still, but now I know what a TV dinner feels like. I
You love that line.
I like that line because it's just like it's so dumb.
Mhm.
It's another one of those lines he says to himself. He says it, and then it's just like, what am I supposed to do with that, John? You
You're
know,
supposed to take it in.
you're just supposed to take it like a man. Here's a classic one. Welcome to the party, pal. After he throws that body out of the window.
You gotta make fists with your toes.
That's a good one. That's a classic. That I love that line and that whole setup early on in the movie because it foreshadows the whole rest of the movie. How he doesn't wear shoes.
I was gonna have to shoot the glass.
Oh man, this one was funny, and I thought it was funny. I don't know if anybody else thinks it's funny. It's whenever John is talking to Sergeant Powell over the radio, and they're kind of like talking and shooting the shit. And it's when John McClane asks why Sergeant Powell is just running a regular beat, and he's like, "What'd you do? Did you like eat too many Twinkies or some shit like that?" And Sergeant Powell goes, "I shot a kid."
It's not funny, but it changes the mood so abruptly that you
Oh,
can like
it's
only
funny.
laugh because it's so awkward.
Oh man, it was so funny to me. I'll get you one of these days, you son of a bitch. No, dude, that shit made me cry laughing. It
Oh
was
my
so
lord.
funny. I think about that. I think about that scene all the
Every day.
time. He just
He
like,
had
cause
a ray gun.
he had a ray gun. I didn't know it was dark. Oh man, that was so, what he how old did he say he was? He was like 13 or 12
I
or
don't think
something.
he has something like that.
That was, it's like obviously it's like really morbid. It's not funny. What makes it funny is that like you see it on the character's face, the actor's face. And he has, it's like the character has no idea how he's supposed to say it other than to just say it and get it out there. And so he does, and the abrupt change in tone, I think, is just the funniest thing in the world. Sergeant Al Powell, played by Reginald Vell Johnson, otherwise known as uh, Carl Winslow from Family Matters, who also played a cop, kills it in this role, dude. I'll get to him later, but he killed it with that line delivery, man.
I just
um,
love the B plot of him and him getting his comeuppance.
yeah, how he kind of like is right. He's like the only one out of all the LA law enforcement that's just right about what's happening.
Mhm. I
Um,
got a feeling he's a policeman. He's not LAPD, but he's definitely a badge.
or like whenever like the terrorists are shooting at like the cops and like the spotlights are like, oh my god, they're shooting at us. Don't worry, it's just panic fire. And Powell's like, they're shooting at the lights, and then they start like blowing up the spotlights. Good shit. Um, moving on to our next category is cutting room floor. Believe it or not, I did not actually have anything for this category.
I all I wanted to say is that I wanted like 5 more minutes with Argyle.
Oh God, yeah, dude, what happened to Argyle? There's so many scenes in this movie where he's just like he could be there, but he's
He's
just
just
not.
hanging.
He's just hanging out.
I I wish to come back to the scene that we were just talking about where they're just like, I shot a kid, and then it hard cuts to Argyle just hanging out, bumping in the.
Oh man, that would have been funny. Although I think by that
He just
point
accidentally shoots Argyle at the
he
end.
shoots Argyle. He misses Carl, who had the gun, and he deliberately
Oh,
shoots Argyle.
it was dark.
It was, oh my god, I couldn't see. It was dark,
He
Argyle.
had
I'm
his head.
sorry. No, dude, that'd be so funny. Um, it makes me laugh so much. He shoots Argyle. Yeah, no, I didn't have anything for this. I didn't see anything in my research to indicate that there was anything cut from the movie. I'm sure there was. I just didn't see anything. Research for this movie has been crazy because I'm basically just reading about how awesome the movie is from certain standpoints. Although I did read that for this movie, they had to go back and shoot a whole bunch of scenes to basically like fluff out the movie and like make the narrative flow better. Like a lot of the scenes that don't take place at the Nakatomi building were scenes added in After Effects. So like a lot of the news scenes with that smarmy reporter played by pretty famous 80s 90s asshole William Atherton, who plays Thornburg the reporter.
Hmm.
um all those scenes where like he's at the Gennaro household. He's at Holly's house and he's like interviewing the kids and the maid and stuff. That was one of the scenes that was like added in. A lot of the scenes with Holly were added in to kind of like help the narrative flow a little bit better. Those are just like the small little bits of detail that I read about that I thought were really interesting, to think that there's a lot of pretty important scenes that are just kind of like not in the movie. So I thought that was fascinating. But in terms of what I would cut from the movie, I don't think there's anything I could cut. I think the movie's got pretty much all the perfect things in it that it needs, and I wouldn't see any of it gone.
No,
No.
maybe like a minute here and there, but like nothing
Eh.
major.
Maybe if I were gonna like really nitpick it, yeah, I'd probably find something that's probably not worth it to the overall plot. But like, but then like even then, like all the little stuff that happens, you could say it's just like really funny. Like how many times does John McClane pass by that picture of that topless chick?
Yeah, and then eventually he's like kissing it and smacking it as he walks by.
His reaction to it changes every time. But like if you think about it, like that doesn't need to be in the movie.
No,
But like
but
it
we want it.
but we want it, and it's funny, and it's like that says something about his character. Like he hasn't totally checked out. He hasn't totally admitted that the situation is hopeless. To me, that's what I think of it when I see him do stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, also I think it's kind of funny how whenever John McClane in the beginning of the movie, whenever he would like enter a room or something, he was always checking out some woman. Do you notice?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was funny because that kind of goes to show that he's kind of an asshole. He's kind of a douche.
Oh, I did have one more line that we didn't say. That's my
Oh,
fault.
go ahead, hit me with it.
The Whenever John first gets to the Nakatomi Plaza and he goes, "I'm here to see Holly McClane," and he's like, "Type it in," and he does the whole thing where he finds out that it's not that she's using her own maiden last name,
Yeah.
and the guy, but right before that he goes, "Oh yeah, they're the only ones in the building on the 30th floor."
Just to let the audience know.
Just to let the audience know, but if that were true, why did he make him type in anything?
Yeah, he could have just said, just go
It's
up
just
to
one
the.
of the funniest, like, oh yeah, 30th floor, they're the only ones in the building.
Thanks,
I just
buddy.
thought that was really funny.
That is funny because that's just like such a goofy way to give exposition. Um, but moving on to our next category, we have the fun ones. We got best explosion, and this movie has a lot of explosions. What's your favorite?
I like when they bomb the tank trying to get into the Nakatomi Plaza,
That's
the
a good one.
SWAT vehicle.
That was my first one. Yep, that's a great explosion. That's shot so well. Mine was the police RV blows up when John McClane ties that C4 to the rolling chair in the computer and throws it down the elevator shaft, blows up that whole second floor or whatever it was. That was really good. And then when the roof blows up right after the FBI helicopter gets there, and
Hmm.
John gets
It looks so
manages,
silly.
yeah, he manages to get all the people off the roof, and then the roof blows. And I think that's a really good explosion. I also like how it's like zoomed out, and you can see you see the entirety of the building, and then you see the explosion. I think that's
It's a
shot
big
really
old
well.
fireball.
Yeah, I think that's shot really well. Um,
Yeah.
best stunt. What would you say is the best stunt in the movie?
So we both kind of were looking at this one when we watched it. The scene right before they do the shoot the glass. There's a guy who gets killed. One of the European guys, and he slams his head through the window.
Yes.
And I really thought that one looked amazing.
I also thought that one looked really amazing because that was also my pick.
There we go. We both took note of it when it happened.
It's so visceral. It's
Hmm.
such a good
It looks
stunt.
like it's like even better than the squibs almost because you're like, oh, that guy's dead, dead.
Yeah, well, because that's also got like that great special effect of like the practical glass that
Yeah, the sugar glass.
yeah, like that faux glass that would just like it's really easy to break, but it doesn't hurt to break, you know? Um, but it can still cut. That's the other thing about it too, is I've learned this from like old Jackie Chan movies, is
Yeah.
the glass breaks easily, but it's still technically glass to an extent. So it can like still cut you and stuff. Um, so yeah, it can actually, if you're not careful, it can actually still cut you, and it kind of looked like it fucked that guy up pretty bad. I was trying to find that specific stuntman's name to give him credit here, but man, especially back in the 80s, it's so hard to get credit for a stuntman unless you're the stunt coordinator doing all the stunts. However, I did want to give credit to um, God, I'm gonna butcher this name. It's Keely. It's like Keely or Kelly. It's Keili Johnson. He was Bruce Willis's stunt double for the movie. And if you know
And you could
anything,
really tell some of the scenes.
you could really tell who he was. If you
He
could,
ain't got the same hairline.
yeah, he did not have the same hairline. Their build was like similar enough. I think Keely Johnson's taller than John McClane. Um, because Bruce Willis is not that tall of a guy. You can kind of just tell that by looking at him. I think that's supposed to add to his regular guy aesthetic. But how many times in the movie were we watching it and I was like, "That's the stunt guy."
Yeah, so many times.
So
Anytime
many
there's in a
times.
fist fight, if the camera's not in his face, it's not him.
Yeah, yeah, especially in his fight against Carl towards the end, um, which I'll just go ahead and skip to now. The best fight slash action sequence I had was John McClane versus Carl. Carl, the blonde terrorist played by Alexander Godunov.
I
Uh,
want revenge.
I want, I want revenge, and you'll have it. Um,
Just wait.
just wait. Yeah, John versus Carl. That fight scene, I really like that fight scene because it's just a really good nuts to butts fight scene. Um, where you have this guy fighting this guy, and it's like it's not like your typical action sequence where it's like mano y mano kung fu type bullshit. It's literally just two guys just wailing on each other, um, just going crazy, and you can kind of tell John's like constantly on the back foot with this fight. He's constantly just like trying not to get his ass kicked, and he manages to finish the fight up pretty well by getting that chains on Carl's neck and then throwing him across the room. But throughout the entirety of that fight, you can tell very clearly that you know that guy Keely Johnson. You can tell exactly when the camera cuts who is who between Bruce Willis and Keely Johnson, and it is the funniest thing in the world because it's
I
so
love
noticeable. It's probably one of the few. If I were to say it was a flaw with the movie, that's like one of those flaws because it's so obvious that
it.
the stunt double is the stunt double when he is supposed to be John McClane, Bruce Willis. Really interesting, really funny.
Really love it.
What was your best fight slash action sequence?
I really like that one. Or I was gonna say the fight with Carl's brother, where they fall down the stairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I really like that one.
that's a good one. Because that one kind of fits into the same vibe where it wasn't really, it wasn't really like, you know,
Very traditional.
it wasn't your traditional action fight. He kind of like had to jump on the dude's back and try and just keep him from going crazy. And he didn't even kill him. The stairs killed him.
Yeah.
He
And
didn't.
then I love the part earlier whenever he's like, "I promise I'm not gonna hurt you," and then he comes around the corner and just blows away the absolute nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was definitely
And
trying to
then he's
hurt
like,
him.
"You're a policeman."
Oh yeah, he's like, he's your policeman. You wouldn't just shoot me. And he goes, yeah,
You industry.
that's what my captain keeps telling me. And then he gives him like the weakest elbow to the back of the head. It does nothing.
The smallest.
This is great shit. Going into overacting anonymous category, we talk about who is the biggest overactor in the whole movie. I already mentioned this earlier. Hart Bochner, the guy that plays Ellis in the movie. I gave it to Ellis.
I was gonna say it's either Ellis or Argyle.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't give it to Argyle.
But just the parts. I just had the part where they're doing the exposition on the way there, and he's like, "Come on, tell me, man, you got kids? Ah, so your wife, you thought she was gonna come back crawling, huh?"
Yeah, he's like messing with him. No, that's good. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
just that scene
That scene's good, but then Argyle kind of falls off, and then Ellis just takes over. He just fucking starts.
takes over
He
for
runs
two
the
seconds.
show from that point on.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah,
He's just getting the coke, and he's like, "I'm not a method actor. What's the gun for?"
he's so stupid. I love it. He is literally the perfect example of 80s douchebag. He thinks he's so smart and he's hot shit and just like all this stuff, and he's really not. But that's what makes him so entertaining to watch. Um, but yeah. Anyway, um, yeah, I had Ellis. He's fucking hilarious. Obviously, I love the scene where he gets killed by Hans, where he's trying to like convince Hans that
It's
he
so
and John
good.
McClane are like best buddies or whatever. And Ellis thinks that for whatever reason, this is a good idea. Hey,
We're best buddies. Why are you breaking my heart?
yeah, he goes, John, we've known each other for like 10 years. But then he gets killed. And John is just like begging, pleading
It's
with
so
him,
good.
Ellis, don't do this. Tell him you don't know me. Ellis just doesn't get it. Ellis just does not get it.
Doesn't get it.
I also
It's too
like
late.
I also like that scene way earlier on when John first meets Ellis and he's like doing blow on Holly's desk of all people's desks to be doing
And
it
he
on.
just like barely wipes it away.
Yeah, and then like they meet each other and then John walks past him and he looks at Ellis and he goes, "You missed a spot." That's good shit. That's good shit. Um but yeah, that is the winner for overacting anonymous. He gets the award. Up next is
Oh yeah, for
Spotlight Cameo, the category where we talk about our favorite cameo from this movie. This one, I spent so long. I spent so long on this category because there was a specific guy that I was trying to find, and I could not because his character doesn't have a name in the movie, and I was having a hard time finding him on IMDb. I was having a hard time finding him in the credits for the movie, and I wanted to find him so bad so I can give his name because he's also in Roadhouse, and I love Roadhouse. But I couldn't find it, so I decided to go with my second choice, which was Al Leong.
This is who I had.
Yeah, I figured it was gonna be the one you had. He's probably the most recognizable cameo. He was also in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He was in Big Trouble in Little China. And he was also in Lethal Weapon. So he is the random guy who just starts like eating candy out of the snack bar of the
He gets the
building.
crunch bar.
Yeah,
Good choice.
yeah. Oh, great choice. Love Crunch bars. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it for Spotlight Cameo. Got the second comers up next. Second comers category is the category where we talk about our favorite actor slash character in the movie that is not the main character. Who'd you got?
It's Hans, baby. Bubby. Hans.
Bubby. See, that's good. That's interesting. because obviously it's like we had already mentioned, he's probably one of the greatest movie villains of all time. What do you like about Hans? Would you say?
Oh, he's just so magnetic and carries the movie so well. If
Yeah.
if it's not Hans, if it's not Hans, then it's Sergeant Al.
Well, Sergeant Powell's who I had. He was my pick. I definitely like him.
He also carries the movie in such a great way that if you don't have the main character, you need these kind of characters to keep it going.
I feel like there's a small trifecta when it comes to each each aspect of the movie that a character kind of like props up and holds together. Like I feel like at the center, at like the peak, and like one part of the triangle, you have John McClane. Obviously, he's the hero, and the story follows him. And then on the other point, you have Hans Gruber. He's the villain. Whenever you don't see something happening with the good guys, you have something going on with Hans, and you see it, from his point of view. And Holly's also kind of like orbiting that point and all that stuff. And then you go to the third point of this trifecta, and you've got, in my opinion, you've got Sergeant Al Powell, who to me is like he's the guy on the ground. He's the guy where all this other shit is going on with the police and the FBI and all
Mhm.
that stuff is bouncing off of him. And you've got John talking to Al Powell and he's talking to Gruber and just like all this stuff is like interconnected. So I feel like the strength of the movie is built on the backs of these three characters. And I feel like without Sergeant Al Powell, we wouldn't have nearly as good of a movie as we would get because I feel like his character also brings out the good in John McClane's character. Like if John McClane didn't have Al Powell to bounce off his like voice, then he would have probably like lost all hope a long time ago.
Completely agree. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Because I mean like think about it like if it was one of those situations where John, like when he was like after all that stuff happened with like the glass and how Hans and John McClane met face to face for the first time, and his feet are all banged up and he's covered in shit. He looks like shit. He feels like shit, and he thinks he's about to die. And then Al is just like, "Hey man, I understand you're going through some shit. I can't imagine what you're going through, but you cannot give up. You can't quit." He goes, "Look, man, I shot a kid. Okay, you got to come back from this.
You
Um,
gotta come back.
you got to do
Get that
this.
glass out of your feet and let's go.
Yeah, pull it out with your teeth if you have to." Um, but yeah, that's why I like that character. I also just really like that actor. I think that actor's pretty cool. Um, Now we're gonna get into what I thought would be fun. This is me trying to be doing something different, doing something fun. Movies that are like Die Hard. Die Hard being such a iconic movie that I thought it'd be fun to talk about our favorite movies that are like Die Hard and like that very central Die Hard esque like vibe. You know what I'm talking about?
They just ripped it off years and years in a row.
I guess. I guess so, yeah. Movies that are basically like Die Hard, just in a different setting. You know what I mean? So the first
Yeah.
one I'll go ahead and just mention, and I'll bounce it back to you. The first one that I was going to mention is Cliffhanger. We already talked about it earlier. We'll talk about it for briefly now. Cliffhanger, the movie starring Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone starring in a movie just like Die Hard because he passed on the Die Hard script, I think is poetic justice at its finest.
Oh, yeah.
And
Love Cliffhanger.
and that's Die Hard on a Mountain for all you wondering. as it that is fondly referred to as Die Hard on a Mountain. And what is yours, sir?
We're gonna go with a Skyscraper starring Dwayne the Rock Johnson, where it's
Ooh.
literally just the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's in a skyscraper and everything.
It's Die Hard in a skyscraper.
It's so funny.
They return to basics.
It's Die Hard in Die Hard.
Hmm.
They had
It's
already
more Die Hard than Die Hard.
it's more Die Hard than Die Hard. It's Die Harder. I love it. Um, next one is gonna be, this is one of your favorites. Speed.
Oh, love Speed. Pop
Speed.
quiz, hotshot. Bus is traveling at 50 miles an hour. Bomb is armed. Drops below 50 miles an hour. Bomb explodes. What do you do? What do you do?
Speed, starring Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock.
Oh,
Uh,
I love Speed
Die
so much.
Hard on a Bus. Die Hard on a
Die Hard on a
Bus.
bus.
Perfect. You got another one for me?
Uh, Phone booth.
What's that one about? A phone booth?
It's a guy who's trapped in a phone booth. It's Die Hard in a phone booth.
That's pretty funny.
He's talking to the bad guy on the phone. It's got like the same kind of dynamic.
Oh, where like the bad guy and good guy are like talking to each
Mhm.
other. I got
Back
you.
and forth, but the whole thing is that he can't leave the phone booth, similar to how John McClane can't get out of the building. Die Hard in a phone booth.
I got you. I got you. Solid, solid. My last one here. Okay, I wanted to say my last one, but there's really like three movies to like
All right, well,
to
just
talk
hit me
about.
with
So there's so this is what I like to call the Die Hard on a Plane trilogy. These are three movies where it's basically the premise of Die Hard, but all three of them take place on a plane. And
Is one of them nonstop?
no, I was not. I was actually. I thought about Nonstop, but I
That's
was.
my last. That's my last one. Then I did think of that one just now, where it's Die Hard on a plane.
It's either Nonstop with Liam Neeson, or it's that one Liam Neeson movie where he's on a train. Either or.
Oh yeah,
Either or it's Liam Neeson on
the
public
same
transit.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, we gotta do some Liam Neeson movies eventually.
Oh, I can't wait.
Um, but the ones that I were talking about was one. The first one. These all took place in the '90s, by the way. The first one is Passenger 57,
Yeah.
I believe it's called, with Wesley Snipes as the
Hmm.
guy. He gets on a plane, and it turns out the plane's being hijacked by bad guys. Uh,
Hmm.
Number two is a Nicolas Cage movie called Con
Con
Air. Con
Air.
Air.
Con
Plane
Die
gets
Hard in a prison plane.
Die Hard on a prison plane. There you go. And then this one's my favorite of the Die Hard on a Plane trilogy. It's Harrison Ford in Air Force One, where it is
Get off of my plane.
Die Hard on Air Force One, the
It's
presidential
so good.
plane, where literally
So good.
the hero of the movie is anything but a
Is
regular
the
guy.
president?
Is the president of the United
He's
States of
not only
America.
not only is he the president, he's Harrison Ford.
He's Harrison fucking Ford, baby. Oh yeah, lovely shit. I love it. Um, but that was just like that's like my favorite thing to talk about whenever I talk about Die Hard. Is just like all these other movies that are just like Die Hard, except they just tweak the setting a little bit,
Just a tad.
just a tad,
Add a little spice.
add a little bit of flavor. But yeah, I love all those movies. I think they're so fun. Um, but yeah, I really like that shit. There was one more category that I was thinking of. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. It was our last one, and then we were gonna fade out. Do you remember what it was?
I mean, I would assume it's movie memories, but we've kind of already talked about it a little bit.
No, we can talk about movie memories. We didn't really get into it as much. Or I mean, we.
Either that or the book.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was. Oh
I
wait,
gotcha.
wait. I
I got
remember
you,
now. Let me see if I can remember what we called it that one time. We last used it during our
Rambo,
Rambo
First
run.
Blood.
That was a while ago. We're on our sixth one. Can you believe that?
It's crazy. We're flying through these podcasts.
Oh yeah, we called it. I called it "Books Be Gone." The category,
Books be
the
gone. That's what
category
it
where we
was.
talk about the book that it's based on, the differences between the book and the movie. Did you have any off the top of your head, or do you want me to just kind of like take
No,
it
I did
here?
not.
Okay.
You got it. I can see how excited you are.
Okay, okay. So the book, excuse me. So some of the major changes between the book and the movie Die Hard. Die Hard is based on a book, like I already previously mentioned. Die Hard is based on I can't remember. I actually can't remember what the name of the book was. So
You can
it's
do it.
so silly.
I believe you.
But one of the major differences between the book and the movie is actually the age of the main character. The age of John McClane in the movie is probably like late 30s, early 40s, probably, and the age of the character in the book is like early 60s. So we basically have regular age for an action hero versus old man. Oh, and the book's title was Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe.
It'd be way funnier if it was old Tommy Lee Jones as the main character.
Yeah, yeah. Um, One of the other major differences between the book and the movie is that there is no ex-wife character. The character that John McClane in the book goes to go see is actually his daughter, um, who is actually a heroin addict. She's actually a recovering heroin addict. Um, and let's see here, trying to find something else. La, 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 la. Trying to find the name of the main character because I know the main character in the book is a lot different than what it is in the movie. Should have had this written down. His name was Joe Leland. It was not John McClane. It was Joe Leland. Just something that was a little bit crazy. But yeah, like I said, his daughter is actually the character that he goes to go see in the movie, in the book, at the building. And one of the things that happens to her at the end, this is another major difference, is that the way John McClane in the movie saves Holly from falling off the building, from being grabbed by Hans Gruber, in the book, that doesn't happen. Hans Gruber grabs uh, Joe Leland's daughter and pulls her down with him, and she falls all the way to the ground and dies.
Should have kept it in.
Should have kept it in, yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see what else we got here. That's anything major. If I'm not mistaken, the terrorists in the book actually were really upset. They actually were terrorists. They weren't just thieves. Because in the movie, one of their biggest things is they pretend to be terrorists, but they're actually
Not as
thieves.
interesting.
Yeah. There's no Argyle in the book. That's kind of sad. Let's see here. Anything else? When McClane kills one of Gruber's men, da, 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 I don't know. Just alone. The book's ending is depressing. In the book, Leland still, yeah, I know, right? Leland still witnesses more tragedy even after losing his daughter. One of the surviving terrorists emerges from the building and opens fire at random. The police chief ends up dead from this ensuing shooting, and Leland lies on the ground injured. And that sums up the events of Nothing Lasts Forever. Like it's just some
That's so sad.
it's kind of like a big downer
Not
book.
all the feel good Merry Christmas ending that I like.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's actually kind of funny just like how not good that ending is, but I think, talking about Die Hard really makes me just reminisce about like what it is that I really love about Die Hard is that by the end of the movie, it we come together and we really appreciate the struggle that John McClane went through, and we really appreciate just not only everything he went through, everything he did to get there. I really appreciate stuff that like Holly did as a character. The way she looked out for the other hostages, the way she was pretty smart and not revealing that her and John were inherently connected yet. Um, I like the differences between the way they handled their separation. Um, I just really liked how all that kind of like worked out. Mm. I also reminisce about how I first watched these movies, because I first saw a lot of these movies on reruns on like AMC and stuff.
Same, same, same.
Yeah. Whenever they would like, I think this was also around the time. This was probably another one of those Kingdom of the Crystal Skull moments where the newest movie at the time when I was a kid would have been Live Free or Die Hard.
Yeah,
I did not see
I
that
had
movie in
kind of missed
theaters.
that.
I did not see that movie in theaters. However, when that movie was coming out, it pretty much prompted all the channel TV channel networks to start doing reruns of Die Hard, of the original Die Hard trilogy. So not only would you see Die Hard, you'd see Die Hard 2, and then you'd see Die Hard 3, and then that kind of cycle would just go on repeat. And so you'd just be watching these movies. And obviously, a lot of it was heavily censored, especially by the time you get to 3. Um, the core, the core movie, like, still transfers over, but by the time you get into 3, it's just, you're missing something because Samuel L. Jackson is trying to do his traditional, like, cursing that he does, and it doesn't translate very well because he's always like
I know.
he's being cut off, or it's being translated into something else. um what are your thoughts and feelings about the other Die Hard movies after this one?
They're all right.
Do you still think Die Hard number one is definitive the best one?
Yeah, it's the only one really. Every once in a while, I watch Live Free or Die Hard, but I don't really care for two and three much.
Do you want to go ahead and just quickly just do like a quick ranking breakdown, like
Oh yeah,
starting at
it's
5? I know you haven't seen 5.
uh,
We'll just go ahead and put 5 in last.
yeah. Go ahead and put five in last. And then it's
uh,
probably three.
ooh, four's, yeah, 3 for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, two.
2. Okay, I feel that. I
Yeah,
feel that.
two's
No,
two's second word.
I was gonna say 2 is like, I like
The most
2.
forgettable.
I like 2 fine, but it really is just Die Hard at an airport.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They
Can
they
never get into it.
they did it themselves.
Yeah.
I actually like Die Hard 3 more than I like Die Hard 2.
Yeah, I agree. And then probably three, and then four, and then one.
Wow, so you think 4 is better than 2 and 3? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I just don't think they're as watchable. They've aged the opposite way that the one has.
Okay, so like, 1 has aged like fine wine, and the other 2 have aged like milk.
Yeah. They've aged like because the first one it gets if it's become more timeless. I watch it like I was saying, I watch it every around the Christmas season. My new best memory is us watching it here recently together.
Oh, that was
It was
great.
It's so much fun. But two and three just don't carry that same weight. And then I like four just because it's a completely different. It's more like Mission Impossible or The Bourne Legacy or something where it's more of a spy thriller, where it's like espionage or like Eagle Eye.
Eagle Eye is probably what I would consider it more because it's about like the technology, like
Mm.
hackers and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I think for me,
Because it's so far removed that it's not even really Die Hard, other than name.
it's more of like your traditional action movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I would go. It's a Good Day to Die Hard. Genuinely terrible movie, objectively bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I would probably go Die Hard. It's been so long since I've seen Live Free or Die Hard. Uh, but I think it's also probably been about the same amount of time I have seen 2. So I'd probably put 2 here.
Then four,
Okay,
then three.
actually wait. I will say this about Die Hard 2. Die Hard 2 probably has the better use of the catchphrase "Yippee ki motherfucker."
No, it's
Arguably,
worse.
No, I'm telling you,
No, it's
argue
worse.
me.
I
No,
don't agree.
where he's got the lighter and he's like,
No,
"Yippee motherfucker!" And he throws the lighter and hits the
that's
gas
so
on.
lame. It's not the same.
No, dude, I'm telling
It's
you,
way cooler when he's just leaving the room.
where he's talking to
It's just a
Hans.
throwaway.
Yeah. Well, and but I like how it comes back later in Die Hard 1 where
Exactly, because
Hans is
then
like,
Han says it.
what was it you said to me? Yippee
Yippee-ki-yay,
motherfucker.
motherfucker.
The way he says it is so fucked up. But but I
Oh,
think
so
in
good.
terms of like line delivery from John McClane as Bruce Willis, I think Die
Shut
Hard
up.
Two's got the better one.
Shut up.
I think it's the
Just shut
better
up.
one.
No.
But I'd still put Die Hard 2 as a whole at number 4, and then Die Hard. I put Live Free or Die Hard, and then I would put Die Hard 3, and then I would put Die Hard 1, just to like change it
Hey, it's
up.
all right. Hey,
I,
it's all right. We don't have to agree on everything. That's
no,
why we
no,
have the
yeah,
show.
but I really do
But you're
like.
wrong.
Well, objectively,
But
I'd
you're
say
wrong.
I'd say you're a little on the
But you're
wrong
wrong.
side.
No, it's all right, but you're wrong.
Yeah, well, we can agree to disagree on whether or not you're wrong.
Hey,
So,
I hope you don't live free, but I do hope you die hard.
it's a good day for you to die hard. So, I'd appreciate that. Do you agree with like the subtitles for the Die Hard like
No,
sequels, where Die Hard 2 is literally Die Harder?
no, it's so stupid.
Die Hard 3 is Die Hard 3 gets like it's very
With vengeance.
yeah, Die Hard 3 takes on like I Shot a Kid levels of like tone changing
Yeah.
because then it's like Die Hard with a
Then,
vengeance.
and then it's just like a Quentin Tarantino ripoff.
Live Free or Die Hard.
I like
Uh,
that as a title though.
that's a cool title, like how it kind of like changes into trying to turn it into a sentence. I'd even say It's
Mm,
a Good Day to Die Hard is kind of like a little cheesy, almost like a James
mm,
Bond like movie title or
oh yeah.
something. But like the movie itself does not reflect the level of enjoyment you'd get from that.
No, I'm not even gonna try to watch it.
No, I don't recommend it. I would not say it's necessary. It does not in any
No.
way have a satisfying ending to the Die Hard franchise at all.
That's so funny.
Um. Oh, I'm getting tired.
Wow.
Well, did you have anything else you wanted to add to
I did
this
not.
wonderful Die Hard esque we've got going on here?
Other than I just love it.
It's a great movie. Can't really say a bad thing about it.
Not even a little bit.
Nope. But that is gonna do it for this episode of Action Jack-Offs, where we talked about Die Hard. Next week to coincide with the celebration, the release of Beverly Hills Cop 4, we're going to be covering the first Beverly Hills Cop movie starring Eddie Murphy. Until
I'm
then,
so excited.
until then,
Until then, yippee ki yay, motherfucker.
be all.